Okay, Mayor, we're recording.
You can start.
May I begin?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few preliminary matters. This is Zoe Burgess, your city clerk. The meeting of the local planning agency is being held with a quorum of members in attendance at the Westlake Council Chambers 4005 Seminole Pratt Whitney Road. Mayor Roger Manning, Vice Mayor John Paul O'Connor, Councilwoman Kara Crump are present physically in attendance. Councilwoman Long Robinson is attending via WebEx Communications. Councilwoman Long Robinson, are you able to hear us?
I am able to hear you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are. Thank you. Councilman Paul, are you on the line? Are you able to hear us?
He indicated earlier today that he may or may not be able to call in, depending on timing.
Thank you. City Manager Kenneth Castle, Interim City Attorney Donald Duty, and City Clerk Zoe Burgess are present and physically in attendance. Planning and Zoning Director Nilsa Zacharias is present physically in attendance. Public comments may be accepted prior to the meeting utilizing the electronic comment card available on the city's website. Public comments are also permitted at the appropriate time during the meeting. The mayor will call for such during public comment, and you may participate at this time utilizing the system's virtual hand feature and waiting to be acknowledged if you wish to comment. Please note this meeting is being recorded, both voice and video, and to remember your mic may be live. I will mute any microphones that carry any feedback or interruptions. If you are a caller that has been muted, you may unmute yourself by pressing *6. Any person in the virtual meeting causing a disruption or being inappropriate will be removed. If I may also remind those physically in attendance, please utilize microphones so that the virtual audience and a clear recording of the meeting is produced. Thank you, Mayor Manning.
Thank you. Call to order the local planning agency meeting Monday, September 13th, 2021 at 6:03 p.m. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Long Robinson.
Here.
Councilwoman Kara Crump. Councilman Patrick Paul. Vice Mayor John Paul O'Connor.
Present.
Mayor Roger Manning.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Does anyone have any additions, deletions, or modifications of the agenda for this evening? Planning meeting? Show no comment on that, so let's move forward. Public comments and requests. This is an open forum on non-agenda items. This section of the agenda allows for comments from the public to speak on any item not presented on the agenda. Each speaker will.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have to approve the agenda, right, first?
Yes.
Yes, sorry, you're good. Karen?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Yes, second. A second.
I have a motion to approve the agenda. Seconded by
Nice catch.
Roll call.
yes.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Public comments and requests. This section of the agenda allows for comments from the public to speak on any item not presented on the agenda. Each speaker will be given a total of 3 minutes to comment. A public comment card should be completed and returned to the city clerk. When you are called to speak, please go to the podium, and prior to addressing the council, state your name and address for the record.
Mayor, we received no virtual comments. No public comments. However, we'll give the virtual audience a moment to raise their virtual hand. If you wish to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand. If you've been muted, please press *6. Please state your name and address. We have a comment from Ms. Torres.
Hi, Alicia Torres, 5847 Whippoorwill Circle. I just want to clarify, is this time right now to talk about non-agenda items only, but we will have comments after the meeting to talk about agenda items?
We, on our agenda, do not have agenda items after. We don't have any comment on that after the meeting.
Okay, so I'm here because I saw that the Art and Public Spaces Board was going to be discussed tonight, and I just wanted to let you know that I write for Westlake Wanderer. I write Westlake Wanderer blog, and I've had a lot of interest in this particular board. So I do have a couple of questions. I think I'm putting the cart before the horse a little bit. I'm not sure if I should hold the questions till later.
I don't think it's on the agenda. I think we take it.
Now, now would be appropriate time.
Yeah.
Okay, so the big question I keep getting asked is, what kind of relationship will this board have with the city or the developers?
Can I present first? I have all the information here.
Terrific. If we could,
It's not interrupt public comments, so the presentation will have to follow public comments. And it allows the member of the public to present her questions. You may not have the opportunity to answer them until after all her questions are posed.
Ms. Torres, are you,
Please.
Ms. Torres, you have any other questions before we
That's
start
kind
the
of,
discussion?
yeah, that's kind of the main question. Also, where would funding come from, or how would funding work? Yeah, I'll just put those two as the big questions, and then yeah, if they're going to be answered later in the meeting, I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, should we,
I would-
should we
No,
read
so-
the resolution
no,
to start with here before we
Well,
start?
I would conclude public comments
Okay.
and then take up the next subject,
Okay,
the ordinance, and I think the questions that have been posed will be answered during the presentation.
Correct. We got, not yet, Nelson.
okay.
Public comments are closing, then we'll go on to the
We'll
consent.
close the
agenda.
public comment and we'll open up with the public hearing in regards to chapter 24, art public places. And at that point, Zoe, if you'd read the resolution, and then the presentation should explain what Ms. Torres's questions are, and if they haven't been answered during that presentation, then we will come back to the question and see if we can answer it for her.
Okay.
Consent agenda, right? Did we skip?
Yes. Do we have any consent agenda we already took care of?
It's just the adoption of the August 13th local
Oh,
planning.
okay,
and
the,
minutes.
yes, our hearing. Okay, tonight, I apologize. Everything's a little jumbled here tonight for some reason. Okay. Let's, this
Motion
section
to
of the
approve the
consent agenda
consent
consists of routine administrative items that require final approval by the city council. And the only item on this agenda tonight is the local planning agency meeting minutes from our August 13th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion to approve consent agenda by Councilwoman Crump, seconded by Vice Mayor O'Connor. Roll call. Councilwoman Crump,
Yes.
Vice Mayor O'Connor,
Yes.
Mayor Manning.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the public hearing portion and chapter 24, art in public places. Ordinance 2021-08.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Ordinance by title only, an ordinance to City Council, City of Westlake, Florida, amending Chapter 24 of the city's Code of Ordinances entitled Art in Public Places, providing for definitions, providing for exemption of residential development and temporary structures, providing for the appointment by the City Council to the Public Places Advisory Board, providing for the repair or replacement of damaged or destroyed artwork, providing for convocation, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Mrs. Arias.
Thank you, Mayor Manning. Council members. This is Nilsa Zacharias, Planning and Zoning Director for the City of Westlake. As you recall, we had a workshop, I believe was back in June or July, and we went one by one on the workshop. We received very meaningful and important recommendations and suggestions from the council. So this ordinance that is in front of you have taken into account each of those recommendations. And I would like to walk you through step by step. So the first article 24.1 is just definitions. So we are not going to spend too much time on that. The next article is Article 24.2, Art in Public Places Program. The purpose of this program. It is the purpose of the City of Westlake to establish a formal requirement for the funding, acquisition, placement, and maintenance of artwork within the City of Westlake. So this ordinance that is in front of you will have a specific requirements and with regard to this program. So in section 2, it's very clear that says that non-residential development, all non-residential development projects with building construction cost of $1 million or more as determined by the city building official or shall be subject to the requirements of the Art in Public Places program in accordance with the provision of this ordinance. B, residential developments are exempt. Mixed-use projects. As you all know, we have a very important mixed-use zoning district, and we are expecting to receive a combination of residential and commercial on the same parcel. So the parcel that will need to comply with the use that will need to comply, it will be the non-residential part, even when it is a mixed-use project. So that is very clear here. Section 3 is Art Acquisition Fund. The City of Westlake Art Acquisition Fund is hereby established. It will be funded through the Art in Public Places fees for public and private construction projects, cash grants, voluntary donations to the city for public art projects from governmental or private resources, and all other funds allocated by the city through the budgeted process of the provision of public art. So the intent of this ordinance is that the developer, they are in charge of selecting the art or installing the art on the site or on the building. However, if the developer does not want to do that, there is a mechanism that they can also provide the funds to the city, and then the city will be in charge of the acquisition, installation, maintenance, and so on. So the next page, section 4. This is very important because here we are saying very clearly that non-residential development project with building construction costs of $1 million or more must either contribute 1% of the building construction cost of the project as a fee to the art acquisition fund, or provide artwork that has an appraised value to 0.75% of the building construction cost. So basically, if the developer takes upon the responsibility of selecting the art, installing the art, then they only have to amount to 0.75%. However, if they decide, no, I don't want to take upon all that responsibility, I'd rather provide the money to the city, then will be 1%. So we are giving an incentive to the developer for them to be active on the process of selecting the art and installing the art. So that was, most municipalities, they don't do that, but we want to really incentivize the developer to, for them to install the art. On another, here, Section 6, Art in Public Places Advisory Board, and I think this will answer the question. The Art in Public Places Advisory Board is established to promote greater public participation in access to arts and culture in the city. Composition. The Art in Public Places Advisory Board shall be appointed by the City Council and be composed of 5 board members and 2 alternate board members, and 1 non-voting high school student, who shall be appointed by the City Council. No less than 4 board members shall have a demonstrated knowledge of the arts, such as at least 4 years of experience related to the arts or an educational degree related to the arts, and possess competence in the evaluation of art, art history, art education, architecture, sculpture, painting, and other appropriate media, urban design, or related field. This was very important. That was one of the comments of Council Member Lon Robinson, that we took it upon to edit it. And we put experience as a very important part, not only the educational or academics. Board members shall either live or work in the city. Each board member shall serve without compensation and at the pleasure of the City Council. No board member may be the artist, provide the artwork, consulting services, or have any interest in any artwork to be reviewed by the Art in Public Places Advisory Board, whether proposed by a private developer or by the city. So these are all the provisions with relation to the board. Then also this proposed ordinance has how it will be reviewed. If the applicant proposes to provide artwork rather than to contribute to the art acquisition fund, the Art in Public Places Advisory Board shall review the artwork and recommend to the City Council the approval, denial, or approval with condition of the selection and location of the artwork according to the standards of this ordinance. So this is very clear that this Art in Public Places Advisory Board, it will be very important because they will be looking at the first hand the art, and then this board will recommend to the council. With regard to guidelines, the Art in Public Places Advisory Board may adopt Art in Public Places guidelines to assist both the public and private sector to implement art planning activities. Review by staff. City staff shall review the application and make recommendations to the Art in Public Places Board and to the City Council. Staff also, we need to be involved because we need to make sure that, for example, the safety, if it is put it in the driveway, that the clear triangle visual is not being affected by the artwork. So we are going to do our technical review also. So Section 7 provides standards for the artwork in terms of display, B, integration. Artwork attached to a building structure shall be integrated to the overall planning and design for a structure or project and shall be compatible with the intent and purpose of the structure at which the work or works are located. Artwork display outdoors shall be integrated into the overall landscaping plan, and landscaping shall be utilized to enhance the visibility of such works. So this will give, I think, a lot of flexibility to the developer and to the artist, because they can either have a standalone sculpture in the front yard, some visible place, or the building itself can also be a piece of art. On the, as you recall, on the workshop, I showed several examples where the building itself was the piece of art. So I think they have flexibility. In the workshop, there was also question with regard to maintenance. So E, artwork shall be maintained in good conditions at all times, including any associated landscaping or related improvement. The city shall be responsible for maintaining artwork acquired through the Art in Public Places Fund or with a government-owned lease or easement property. So that's the reason we are encouraging the developer that they are in charge of this, they are in charge of installing rather than just providing the money to the city. F is compliance with building, zoning, and fire codes. The city and state building codes and property development regulations shall apply to the art installation. So definitely our building official will also review this and make sure that it's in compliance with all the building codes. Just for clarification, we have worked with Catherine with this and Mr. Don Hearing, who is not here today. He is in Portugal, actually. So if you have any question, I can answer them.
Do you have any questions from the,
Answer this, but what about existing businesses already, like the tax collector and all that? They're exempt from all this because it's,
Pre-existing would not have to retrofit. However, it's my understanding through Mr. Herring that the tax collector site is already planning a piece of art on part of their property, so they're already ahead of the game, which I think was a good call up front for them.
I have a couple of questions. Can you all hear me okay?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. First of all, to my colleagues, I apologize for not being there in person. I wanted to be there to support this ordinance at our council meeting, but I am home quarantining. And so, COVID is a thing, and it seems like it may have caught me. So I apologize. I did not want to come and expose my friends, the vice mayor and Mr. Castle. I know they love me, but I didn't want to expose them tonight.
I love you too,
Couple of questions. First of all, thank you to staff for working on this ordinance. One thing that I think that we have done a good job collectively is making sure that we make everyone feel welcomed in the city. And I do believe adopting an ordinance where we set the groundwork for the beautification in an effort to highlight the richness of the people who will live, and visit the city is essential as we set the core and the foundation of this. I also support that, and I truly believe it will attract even more business opportunities as the city grows and develops. I do know that Councilman Paul had some questions about the financing of it. So Nilsa, or even the author of the ordinance, if you could talk about Section 3, because it looks like, and I know you mentioned this a couple of times, Nilsa, and you reiterated it, that grants and donations will mostly fund this program. So it seems as though monies will not be taken from the general fund. And I believe I saw that in Section 3. And then in another section, we identified, it was identified where the developer would be responsible for the majority of the artwork. So I hate he's not here. But if we could kind of just tap into that, because even one of the residents asked, where would the funding come from? Am I reading this correctly, that grants and donations will be the source of this project or this program?
Councilwoman Long Robinson, I'll respond to that. That is correct. The ordinance was set up so that all the artwork would either be funded directly by the developer as part of their project, or that they would put into a fund that would fund development of artwork in other places to the city if they did not have the space on their particular property to incorporate it. And one of the things we also did was made it flexible enough so that the could actually be the shape and style of the building could be classified as art in public places, such as the Bacardi Building downtown Miami, the DeVosta buildings in Palm Beach Gardens with the big atriums on top of it. Things like that could be incorporated into the building because we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a bunch of different statutes and stuff around, that it was a flexibility of the developers and the artists and architects to be very creative to produce a very unique look and feel within the city. But
Perfect.
no, it's not funded out of the general fund.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. I know, like I said, I know Councilman Paul had some issues as regards to funding, but once I read it and kind of got a better understanding of it, to see that grants and donations will fund this program, I think that is a win-win to my colleagues who are in the building on tonight. Another thing is I heard or saw, I read where there will be a student joining the board. I want us to keep in mind that there is a student on the Education Advisory Board. And the reason I'm bringing this up, I think it's awesome that we are engaging students. However, there are some other programs and things that we're going to be able to engage students. And council, if I be perfectly honest, unless we have a specific task for this student to be on this board, I necessarily don't support that. I do think there's a place for students, and so we do have a place on the Educational Advisory Board. However, because we are a brand new city and we are implementing, this will be pretty much the second, well, kind of third. We have someone on Planning and Zoning, the Education Advisory Board, and then this is the third board. Whomever the new council members are really going to have to hold their hand. And so I don't know, and this is just, I would love for us to talk about it. I don't know if we would want a student on this particular board, because that would be a heavy lift for whomever is leading the board and giving them a specific task to follow on this board. That was that comment. And then where it has board members live or work in the city, for me, I think maybe, the creation of Westlake was unique by itself. And I don't know about Roger, Mayor Manning and Councilwoman Crump, but we have caught some fire sometimes because we don't live in the city. And so I think while it is wise and we're starting off to say they work in the city, I think at some point that may want to phase out to living in the city. There are county boards that people can join throughout the county, right? I don't know if you would want someone who does not living in the city being on the board to dictate what art goes in the city. I think that our county is vast, especially with having 39 municipalities and several boards for them to join on a county level. I'm not sure if a municipal board would be wise. That's just my opinion. But I like, again, because we are setting the foundation for this, I don't want whomever is coming in to have to fix too many things. And I'm, of course, open to dialogue about it. But other than that, wonderful, wonderful ordinance. Again, I would hope, I promise you, I'm so sad I'm not there to be able to vote at the 6:30 meeting on this ordinance. But thank you to the staff who worked on it, and I would love to hear any feedback if there is any. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Robinson.
I have a question. This is Nancy Bongiovanni. Am I allowed to ask a question?
There'll be a portion time to talk about that after the presentation is finished.
Yep.
Okay.
Or you can bring it up again. This will be a regular council meeting. And you'll have public comments at that time. You'll hold a public hearing. But if you wish to entertain, once the presentation is complete and your comments from the council are complete, that's up to you and the council, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
We have any other questions from the council at this point or comments on this?
Perhaps there's a way to not have an actual student board member, but maybe some form of student liaison, or somehow they can liaison with the youth advisory committee in terms of our own. I like the idea of getting students involved, but I agree with Councilwoman Ron Robinson that perhaps an actual board seat is a heavy lift.
Yeah, I would agree with her too.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that would happen, how that would look. There's a way to somehow still involve students, but not necessarily have an actual board seat.
Whether it be a voting board member.
Correct.
Right.
Is it correct? The ordinance is written that the student is a non-voting
Non-voting
board
anyhow.
member. So they can attend the meetings, they could be part of the discussions and stuff, but they would not be part of the actual voting process. That would be your other 5 members of the board.
I don't mind that.
I don't think that's, as far as my opinion is that if they're not a voting member and if they want to be on that board, just as on an advisory capacity or have comment to the board, I don't see what harm that would do, and how it would put any undue pressure onto a student as long as they weren't voting on something. I think the real question that comes up here for me is the one about whether the member should work in the city and not live in the city. If we had enough qualified people that lived in the city at this point, I would be open to having all the board members come from the city. If not enough qualified people that live in the city to be on this board to make the decisions, it might be advisable to open it up to someone that works here, or we reduce the size of the board, the advisory board that would make these decisions.
We're not gonna know if we have enough qualified
We put
people
it out
until
there,
we put
right?
it out there.
I guess maybe just wait to see how many people express interest in it.
It's gotta be written in the resolution, so.
As of my next question was, do we have to make that decision now, or can we?
Again, you're not meeting as a council. This is just your local planning agency. You're going to take it up later this evening. You can
Okay.
further discuss it. To answer your question, no, this is first reading. You can amend it when you get further deliberations on it before at the second reading. You can discuss it both times, something to give some thought to.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can also propose language that said preferably to live in the city. However, if there is not enough applicant, then it could be open to work. So the preference will be to live in the city. And then, but then there will be room to move along and search also for individuals that work. If we don't feel we can work on some language also there.
There's a way to do that.
To me, the language right now reads, it gives you pretty much flexibility. It says live or work. It's
Right.
your discretion who you're appointing to the board. So you could say, you know what? This year, we want everybody that's going to be on the board to live in the city. And maybe some people come and go, and then it's like, okay, we don't have enough people in the city, so we'll get somebody who works in the city. It gives the council, the way I see it written right now, that flexibility to either say, you know what, everybody's going to live in the city this year, or everybody's going to live in the city, or 4 of the 5 live in the city and 1 outside. So it gives you that total flexibility of the composition of the board. Now, if you want to restrict it more than that, fine, the language can be modified. But right now, we tried to write it to give you as a council that kind of flexibility to go with what you need at the time and what's available to have on the board.
Can we put that into words that state that in here, or do we have to?
It'd be more difficult to try to put it in the ordinance. What I think your city manager is telling you is that you're going to have the discretion on these appointments.
Right.
And if you get 7 applicants, 5 of them live in the city, your appointment process is pretty easy.
Yeah.
I think what he's advocating though is more flexibility to keep the language in its present condition until such time as you see how it plays out. You can always amend your ordinance, but again, ultimately the appointments rests with this council.
Very good. Thank you
I
for
just
your
want to
explanation.
say, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Please.
Council, I was just gonna say, while I do agree with Ken and honor and appreciate his expertise as well as our attorney, I just want us to be clear, we all won't be on the council on the dais. So it would depend, I would think, on that language of who is serving at the time. And if you have live or work, they have the flexibility to have someone who lives or works in the city. That's just like I say, I'm glad that we're just having dialogue about it. I'm glad that we're setting the groundwork for it, but I just I think that's a point as well.
Thank you. Okay. We can open the public hearing now,
You've opened it.
and we have a comment from the public, please.
I believe Ms.
Is this my,
Bhagavani had a question.
Yes.
is this my cue? This is Nancy. Am I allowed to ask my question now?
Yes.
Yes, state your name and address, please.
Nancy Bongiovanni, 16016 Whippoorwill Circle. A couple things. First of all, I am very glad to see the city moving in this direction, and you've got my full support. The fact that you are taking to heart something that's going to mold the city and how the city appears in the future, not only for our current residents, but for our future residents. So I'm very pleased, and I commend you all for doing that. This is an issue that I brought up many meetings ago about art in public places and about community involvement as well as business and developer support, which I'm glad to see that you are taking that into account in these ordinances. I do have a couple of comments about the criteria for somebody to be sitting on this board. First of all, I do agree, based on your conversations, that it should be somebody living within the city. I have some thoughts that there's a possibility to extend it to people working in the city. They're not taxpayers for our city. So I don't know if that's a way that I'd really want to go, but if that was the only alternative to get the numbers, I would understand that. As far as a student, I think having a student liaison is a fantastic idea, but not a voting right. And I also think it's an opportunity for volunteerism for the students to be able to have somebody that can come back to the school systems and their schools with ideas of things that can be done in the community to promote art and art appreciation and culture. The criteria, and I was trying to read it. I couldn't find it in the ordinance, but the criteria for participation does not allow for somebody that does not have art history and employment and education in their background. And that does concern me because, as I've expressed many of those meetings ago, I do have an interest in this in the city because I, as a person that has traveled quite a bit around the world, one of the things that I admire the most when I travel is how the city deals with art and culture, the city that I'm visiting. And I really would like to have an opportunity to participate in this committee, but I don't meet any of those criteria. So maybe that's something that should be looked at. I do have a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. I have a master's degree in arts and business, and I have a pre-doctorate work that I did, but none of it was in the art field. So there may be some other people out there that have a lot of experience of exposure that do not meet those criteria. So I really think those criteria might be something that could be looked at to include one or two people that don't have art or art history backgrounds. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to answer your question, and I think you were exactly right, because the total number of board members is 7, 5 plus 2 alternate. From those 7 board members, no less than 4 board members shall demonstrate knowledge of the arts and 4 years of experience. So basically, there could be 3 board members that they do not meet those criteria. So when we wrote this ordinance, we left room for residents who show interest in being part of the board, but they don't have to have 4 years of experience related to arts or educational degree related to arts, all that criteria. So I think this ordinance definitely reflect the interest of overall, we call it always on a board member, public at large. So that's, and there will be three positions for public at large.
Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation.
Well.
We have a comment from Ms. Goldwire. Ms. Goldwire, please state your address.
Hi, it's 15972 Circle.
Go ahead with your
Go ahead,
question.
please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waiting for permission. I would like to reserve some comments or some statements that I have for the
Could you-
public
could you
hearing.
speak,
I did want
could you
to
speak a little
piggyback
louder,
on what.
please?
I'm sorry. I would like to
sorry, we can't-
reserve my comment.
Thank you.
I'd like to reserve my comments for the public. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, we have a virtual participant, GBL. Please state your full name and address.
Hi, yes, this is Gail Blair Lewis on that 15552 Goldfinch Circle.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yes, I also wanted to echo Nancy's and Katrina's sentiments about the ordinance being presented today. I'm very excited to hear this and to know that we are thinking forward as the look and feel of our city in the future. So thank you for that. I too had some questions or concerns with the composition of the board and how, yes, thank you for the explanation, that would be 4 out of the 7 that would require these requirements of education or background in the arts. I do not have those things, but I do, as same as Nancy, I do feel that I have a deep interest in art. I feel that I am well-traveled as myself, but I just don't have those specific requirements. So I'm wondering if, fantastic if we get 4 board members that do have these requirements, but is there any opportunity that if we don't have enough interest in folks with that kind of background, that we could change the numbers from 4 to 3 to more than just, 3?
We could, EJ, would you like to comment to that, please?
I cautiously weigh in here. What you may want to consider when you consider the ordinance, when you change the word shall to should. keeps the integrity of what you're trying to accomplish, but it doesn't require you to make those 4 appointments. So it's really a recommendation. But if you don't have that ability, you still can appoint members at large who don't have that background.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I do too. Thank you.
We have a comment from Ms. Torres. Ms. Torres, please state your address.
Hi, 5847 Whippoorwill Circle. And I just want to say that attorney duty, I think that's a wonderful solution to the problem that we're having as far as, board members. I think that the requirements right now are a bit aspirational given the size of our city. So a should instead of a shall, I think would really, to me, put the importance on what I think is that we should have board members who live in our city as opposed to work. And I still think that might be a stretch, just given the state of things right now. But I really am excited about this board. I think that somebody said it earlier, it's about creating a welcoming environment to everybody, whether they be passers through or residents or, potential residents. But I think that being a brand new city that is not organically grown in the sense that just over time, as a need is filled, that we could end up looking like a big box city. And so I think it's really important that we get our personality out there, that we have memorials, that tell our stories and whatnot. I'm not an artist, so I'm thinking of a statue of 3 people with masks on, but but really we COVID should definitely be reflected just in an ongoing fashion, just art telling our story. I did see a resident took a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Westlake is what they're being called at the tax collector's office. And I loved it. I thought it was sweet and affectionate and playful. And I hope that we get more information on it, whether it's a dedication or some kind of presentation by the artist. I think that would be really cool. So thank you guys for doing all of your work. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
If there is anyone else in the virtual audience that wishes to make a comment, please unmute your device, state your name and address. If you've been muted, please press *6. I see no other virtual comments.
Thank you. With that, I guess we have a few things to clarify on our ordinance before we make a motion.
You could motion to recommend it to the council with the changes of shall or should instead of shall, and the change of the number of, that was the only real change that was substantive.
I think that
And
was
just
it.
go with that and recommend it with that and then go forward from there. And then we would, at the council meeting, once you do the first reading, we'll make the amendments to the ordinance for second reading.
I will go ahead and recommend to the council that we adopt this ordinance with the provision that we change the word shall to should in terms of experience on the board.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Councilwoman Vice Mayor.
Yes.
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 Thank you. And we'll close the public hearing. And that finishes our business with the local planning agency for this evening. So we will adjourn at 6:51. And we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll get right into our council meeting.
we not have an alternate for the LPA?